Welcome to the Choose Happy podcast. I'm your host, Nazy Javid. It is October 25th, 2022. Say hello to my husband, who is how old today?
50 years old today.
The big 50. Happy birthday, Mr. Wilson. Introduce yourself to those who don't know you.
Well, I'm luckily married to you, so that's the best part of my 50 years right there.
If you don't know us, I'm Nazy Javid. I'm a news anchor, and my husband is Eddie Wilson. He's a police sergeant, and we are celebrating his birthday today. And I said, hey, honey, you know what? We should hop on because I have been so slacking on doing my podcast lately. I said, we should hop on and you can share some life lessons you've learned in your 50 years. So stick around for that if you're curious and you want to know what some of his advice is and what he would have told maybe his 25-year-old self. Stay here. That's coming right up. And welcome back. Thank you for being here for the Choose Happy podcast. Hi, Wilson. You're 50 years old. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Do you feel different today?
Not really. I thought I'd feel a little more different than I do, but I don't. I look in the mirror and I feel a little older when I look in the mirror. But
you do not look 50. In fact, we just celebrated his birthday in Hollywood. We spent a week or so.
That was fun. Good time.
Yeah, and he didn't know where we were going. I randomly booked tickets. I booked a hotel. I booked some stuff to do, and I just said, get on a plane, we're going. And he had no idea. And it was so great because everyone at the airport cooperated with me, like all of the people at the airlines. Nobody told them where we were going. They said they would check us in, and they're like, okay, where are you headed? And I was like, he doesn't know. And they're like, okay, we won't say anything. There were no electronic signs up, so that was good.
No. Normally we'd have the boarding passes printed out ahead of time. If we didn't,
I had them sent to my email
so that I couldn't see where we were going, because initially that would obviously given it away. That didn't happen. So
it was just the excitement of not knowing.
It was.
You know.
Because she knows how much I love to fly, so that was it.
I had to warn him about the flight because he's not a big. Why is that? You don't like
anxiety. I don't know what it is. I feel like when I was in my 20s, I was okay with flying. But I hit 40 and the anxiety, I'm not quite sure. So from 40 on, the anxiety of flying seemed to hit me harder. I still do it. And it's like, not that I don't ever want to fly again, but sometimes I'll pick the other option. If I can drive somewhere as opposed to fly, I'll do that. But in this case, for us to have a full weekend in LA, we had to fly, and it was easy. And it's an hour flight down as opposed to, 8 hours probably from Reading, 8 or 10 hours from Reading. But
yeah, I think part of that, like, I get that. I have that type of anxiety when I'm driving on the highway, and mine comes from, a highway crash that I was in. I think yours probably comes from just what you're always on heightened alert because you're a cop. And so it's like how you can't have your back at a restaurant when we go, facing a certain way, and how if we're in a crowd of people, your eyes are scanning, and I'm like trying to help you be present because you're always a cop, and I think that when you're on an airplane, you don't have a lot of options to get out safely if there's a situation. So I think that's probably part of it, just knowing you the way that I do. You always like to have an escape plan.
Yeah, and I think obviously on an airplane, you're very limited as far as what you can do.
Jumping out the window, here we go.
If you're jumping out, everybody else is jumping out too, and it's usually because something's happened. So I know, and air travel is very safe. I mean, there are obviously nothing's perfect, not in the car, not in a plane, but it's
definitely not in the car.
Yeah. And but it's still, it's something that I just don't comfortably do. Usually once we get in flight, I'm better. The second flight yesterday, I was a little bit more nerve-wracking, only because the pilot had to make more maneuvers to get out of Burbank to head north. So that was probably a little bit more.
It was the first time that I've flown all over the world, as you know, and that was the first time I've ever had a female pilot.
That was cool.
Is that amazing?
She was very good, and she had a great landing, much better than the previous landings we had back into Reading. Yes. It was very good.
She was a woman, a person of color. I just thought that was so cool, and wanted to give her a high five. She did a great job. Great landing. So we were in LA for the weekend, and we were going to go to this haunted hayride situation in Los Angeles. And when we get there, security swarms and the park rangers come up and they're all having these talks and they're in a circle and they're like, there's a guy with a gun making threats. And so immediately Ed was like, we're getting out of here. That was his response. Like, we're not going to risk it. We're going to play it safe. LAPD was on the way. And I think that's part of the flight thing for you, right? Is you're always just looking
A
to
little
be
bit, yeah.
keeping
I
me
mean,
safe, which I appreciate.
and it was one of those things that I don't, I have every reason to believe the LAPD, handled things correctly and did that, and hopefully nothing came to be from that. I have no idea. We didn't entirely follow up with that, but
All we heard was that they
it
were
was a
like,
little
we're not
chaotic.
armed. We don't have
Yeah, you had
guns.
unarmed security officers there to manage what appeared to be probably in the thousands of people.
Yeah.
And in light of recent events, nationwide, I just wasn't willing to take a
Yeah. A
risk,
disgruntled employee with a
um,
gun making threats. I mean, it
making
was just,
threats of coming to that event and potentially discharging the firearm. So you don't know who it was directed at, what the
yeah.
motivation was, and we didn't get that kind of detail. But unfortunately, like the security staff was speaking pretty closely to
Yeah.
where we were standing. So for me, I was listening as I heard
He's
that
playing that he
information.
isn't the cop again. He just, wherever we go,
And
you're always the
so,
cop.
I kind of feel like sometimes there's signals and things in life, and maybe that's one of those ones you don't want to ignore because you don't know. One,
Yeah.
the biggest thing is we don't know the area. I
Yeah.
don't know. I've never lived in LA. We didn't have a car with us. We weren't in a position to where we could prep and have a plan to get out of there. So if we were caught there because of something like that, that would have been,
Yeah. And there were so many people
and there
there. Like
was,
thousands of people were like
it
coming
would have been
in
very chaotic scene had
and,
something gone wrong there.
especially given what we saw, like at the Garlic Festival, like
Mhm.
near where I'm from, and always on caution. And I'm grateful and glad that nothing major came out of that.
Yeah.
But thank you for helping play it safe.
Well, no, I thought, I feel like something was telling me that it was better for us not to chance it.
Yeah.
Um,
So is that something that you've learned? Like, this is what I really want to get to in this podcast is lessons that you've learned that you might be able to impart on me. I mean, you are a good deal older than me, and I'm sure that there are some things that you would like to tell your younger self if you knew them. If you knew then what you know now, what would you have told yourself?
oh gosh, I don't know. I think that when I first started in law enforcement, I think I had an understanding of what the job was, but I think I would have educated myself a lot more um, in certain aspects of it. I mean, a lot of it's on the job training. A lot of it you can't. There's no way to prep for some of the things you're going to deal with. But I always, you have people I had some people that I worked with that came out of college that had degrees in psychology, degrees in just certain thing like that. I always thought, man, I wonder how is that applicable. And then once you get into the job, you're like, oh my god, they that's very applicable. Anything to deal with human behavior,
Mm-hmm.
good and bad. I mean, I think is such a necessary thing. So I think going back to that, from a career standpoint, the more the education, the better, the more exposure to that. But a lot of it comes on the job. You can't plan for. No amount of training in a classroom is going to prepare you for what you deal with at the human level when you're dealing at one-to-one, one-on-one. If you're dealing with somebody with people in crisis, as we do many times, I don't think there's anything that the books can prepare us to an extent, but realistically, until you're dealing with somebody face to face, I think that's the biggest part. And I didn't realize that now. So if I was passing that information back to somebody starting at 25, I'd say spend a lot of time, educating yourself in ways. And we're being, I think the training is better now than it was even 25 plus years ago. When I started, I think we did a lot of training then, but I think that there's more training in de-escalation, more training in our ability to how communications, the things that were all touched on, but the blocks were much smaller in my academy back then.
Did you have, I'm always curious because, we have children, we have kids with special needs. And so I wonder if that was something that you were trained on back then. I mean, I know that you train officers now on how to identify maybe
Mm-hmm.
somebody with, different
Mm-hmm.
abilities than you would expect in the field. And that can be a life-saving skill to have. So were you taught that back
So
in the
back
day?
in the 90s, and when I went to the police academy in 1995, it was touched on, but it was very much a generalized sense of what a developmental disability was. At that time, autism wasn't as well known. There was obviously probably an autism spectrum at that time. I wasn't very familiar with it because at that point I didn't have, the boys weren't
Right. And in case
didn't
you don't know
exist
us,
yet.
we have I have two bonus sons who are on the spectrum. And so that's where, this comes from. So go on.
But it was a general. It was more of a generalized thing. So it touched on it, but it really wasn't an extensive amount of training in that. And again, it's one of those things where you were kind of, you had to deal with on the street and kind of develop that understanding through real life contacts and not necessarily what you're reading in books. But there was some information, but it's certainly not like it is now. I mean, now we have CIT training, which is the crisis intervention training, where there's a week-long training, and it gives officers and people in the medical field, or even people that are clinical specialists, training and dealing with people in crisis. So it's a great, certainly much more intensive than it used to be.
You're coming up on a lot of milestones and life-changing things, right? You're turning 50 years old. You've made it halfway through your life, and you're coming up on retiring from the position that you're in. At the end of December, you are going to be retiring. You are currently a police sergeant with the Eureka Police Department, and you're going to be on to a new chapter. You're going to be teaching at the academy, and changing your daily routine. What are you looking forward to?
I think I'm looking forward to, I don't know, probably a little bit more living in peace a little bit. I guess I'm trying to equate that. Obviously, I've never served in the military, never served in combat, stuff like that. But to an extent, somebody in my position, after so many years of doing this job, and most of it, all of it being in uniform, where you're on the street, the line level, that you're the first level of response. Um, I think at some point anybody probably reevaluates whether or not it's time to make that change, and whether or not you're willing to continue doing it. And it's not that I certainly don't. I love the profession. I have no regrets for doing it for half my life, but I feel like it's time to maybe explore some other things.
Yeah.
Um,
What are
you
you
know,
thinking? What other things?
I don't know, I like the teaching aspect, as I will do, at least on a temporary level, and then obviously doing some retiree work, which is not uncommon for because we have the experience,
Yeah.
and that we're on a part-time level. Departments can get some extra mileage out of us, so to speak, before
Yeah, for sure.
so
It'll
I
be
look forward to
fun.
doing that, and then we'll see what happens after that. If something comes up that I want to make a complete change over and spend the last part of my working life doing, then that'll be fine too.
Very exciting stuff for you. All right, so you're 50 years old today. What would you have told your 25-year-old self personally, not about profession, but on a personal level? Like, what's something that you learned in the last 25 years that you wish you knew when you were 25?
Oh, gosh, that's a tough question, but I mean, it's a good question. I think that you don't realize how much you didn't know at 25 until you get to the age of 50. I think that's probably the biggest thing. You
Hmm.
think you know stuff. You think you know plenty at that point, and then you realize you really don't know a lot.
Give me an example, like maybe
Oh
with
gosh,
relationships or.
yeah, just how to be a partner. When I was at 23, 25 years old, I didn't understand that part of it. Um, I mean, you think you do, but you really don't. I mean, like it's something that that you kind of stumble through, and you really don't get that part of it. I think early on. I mean, maybe there's some people that are better than I am that at 25 were like the perfect partner, but at that time in my life, I just didn't understand the partnership that is required in a relationship, and as much. I'm not saying I was terrible, but I just didn't understand the everything that goes along with it that makes it work today. The
Yeah,
things
well,
that makes
I'm very lucky that I get this version
the
of you.
things that what makes us work so well, I didn't understand until later in my life, and so it you know took me a while to get that. I probably had a little bit of it in me the whole time, but when you're of a younger age, you're still don't put your partner first as much as you should at that time. And I worked a lot, and so that was easy to just get folded into work because that was
Yeah,
that's
and
all you had at that time. You worked, and
And
That
you
was
had
it.
3 kids at what, 30?
So I was 30 when the boys were
Triplets.
born.
Can you imagine? Like, what would you do with
30 when the yeah.
Did you sleep? I don't know.
Not very odd. That whole year, first year, I can't imagine. I don't think I slept a whole lot. I see photos.
And Kelly, their mom,
Yeah,
is also a first responder. So you guys both had really challenging jobs of service where schedules, I'm sure, were challenging. And but you made it through. You
we
both made
did.
it
Yeah,
through, and
made it
I'm so
through.
grateful for both of you.
Boys survived us.
Yeah, what would you tell the kids? Like
Oh
they're
gosh.
they're coming up in their 20s, and what do you hope that they know?
Well, for Isaac, I already see that he knows it. I just want him to, be kind to people, be good to people.
He's such a good
He's a
boy.
good boy.
He's such a
He's a
good,
good boy.
like,
We're
he's
very, very lucky
amazing.
that way. He is a good boy.
Caring, thoughtful,
Yeah,
responsible, kind.
he's like anything else. He hoards dishes in his room at times and things like
But
that.
he
And
washes them.
he washes them later on, hoards towels, but uses the closet as a place to store things, not necessarily to. But he's a good boy.
He's a great kid. We're very,
And
very, very lucky.
but yeah, I think that, and just you don't realize, like the relationships with people in general until you start getting old enough to where you start losing people.
Yeah,
Like
right.
I've had friends that I worked with that were older that retired, like I'm getting ready to retire, that made it less than 5 years or 3 years, post retirement, and it's that whole thing. It's like you never, I think that some people don't quite understand the sacrifices that the law enforcement officers make in the realm of their health,
I mean, like, you
even
had back
inadvertently. Yeah,
surgery.
I
I mean, you
had
have a
back
big.
surgery 7 years ago. I have metal in my back, and that was all related to work, but never, fortunately enough, I was able to come back from it. I didn't lose
Not everyone
my
is able
career. Not
to.
everyone's able to. I got very lucky, and I think that the thing that helped me out was my size, and I had a desire to come back. I think that the doctor told me because of my compact body, because I'm short,
That's awesome.
it helped me out as far as just the growth part of it, the healing part of it helped out quite a bit.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But yeah, I know, just having seen friends both younger in their life and in my career that have passed, and it's just I think I think that now I want to tell people, hey, when you have those relationships early on in your life, those are meaningful things, and take care of those relationships and be good to people, because you never know, like you don't know if you're going to see them again and how long
Yeah.
they'll be.
That's really, really sad. I mean, you tell me these stories, and I always shut you down because I don't want to hear about it because it scares me, it frightens me. But that is something that you hear a lot about in law enforcement is retiring, finally
Right.
having, some peace, and then having a health issue or having some sort of crisis. So
Yeah,
let's just
and
knock on wood and leave it, call it a day.
yeah, I know. It is what it is. It's like the it's it's just a sad part of that. But I would certainly, in with that, with telling somebody to help fight that is, and then don't be afraid to talk to somebody when you're feeling like you
Yes.
can't deal with
Shout out. Yes.
the things of the
988.
job.
Yeah.
When parts of the job are getting too much, or things that you can't deal with, you know that people not to be afraid to reach out for that. And I think that we've, as a profession, have come a lot further now, because it's not an accepted thing to force you to say, you know what, you just have to deal with it. It's part of the job. And now we have, we're doing a better job as creating outlets for officers to have
Yeah.
confidential
Like, don't you talk
counseling.
to a therapist every
Yeah,
now and then? Like, that's so
yeah.
healthy, and I
Our
love that.
department brings a therapist in, a company that's out of the Bay Area, that's all people that have worked in as first responders in some form,
That's
whether it's
incredible.
dispatchers to cops to firefighters, that have all transitioned out of their careers for one reason or another, either by way of retirements or choices to leave it, but have become therapists. And you can't, like, it's in those there, it's great to have. It's like I said, it's such a great tool now where we didn't have that before. When I
I
first
love that
started.
you're, like, willing and open about that, and that's one thing that is incredible about you. I always, worry you go through so much, but you're very good at opening up and talking to me when you come home. You don't hold it all in, which I think is super healthy. I think that it's important that I know where you are, mentally and emotionally, and
Yeah,
that you don't, hide those serious things
right.
that you see. I mean, you see some pretty gruesome, awful things, and I'm glad that I can be there to be a shoulder for you when you need it, because you're a human and you care about people, and that's the down. That's it's difficult to care as much
Right.
as you do, and then to see what you do and to see how people can be. We don't have a ton of time. We have a 30-minute recording limit on this one. We've got 10 minutes left.
Okay.
But your birthday is your birthday. We had a great time.
We did. We did have a
What was
great
your
time.
favorite part of the weekend?
Just spending time with you. I think anytime we get a chance to be away and just to have our time, I think that's the best part. We went to great places, had great
We had
food, and got to see
such
some
good
sights.
food. We had Persian food. We had
Yeah, it's very
authentic
good.
Italian
We
food.
did.
We
Yeah.
had, I mean, it was just delicious,
Yeah.
and it was fun. And we went to a comedy
We
show,
did.
and
Yeah.
we were downtown, and it was a really good time. And I'm looking forward to more of those moments because if you don't know us, we have been we call this our sacrificial year with the profession that I have. Being in television, you work in contracts, and obviously you have to work where the TV station is that you are contracted with. And so when I got a position out of town, out of the town that we were in, we have a house in Eureka, and I got a job in Reading. You have to honor the terms of your contract, and so I had to start sooner than he was going to retire from his position. So we have this overlay where he's still in Eureka and I'm in Reading, and we get to see each other on the weekends, or whenever we can find the
Right.
time. And it's been difficult. It's difficult. I feel bad leaving you, with so much, the whole household. And then we have two homes that we're maintaining, and so it can be difficult. And this week, spending time with you celebrating your 50th birthday has really been rejuvenating, both for me and I know for you, just to reconnect,
Yeah.
and I'm
No.
looking so forward to having more of that time with you when.
Me too. I think that's one of the biggest things I look forward to is just the freedom of being able to do something else and having the more availability for you. And then
House husband.
house husband, yeah, whatever
I
you
always
want.
wanted a house husband, like, you guys, and I'll say it till the day I die, hopefully. I have never, not once, turned on a vacuum in this
Nope, she has
marriage
not.
or relationship. Even before we were, I have not one time vacuumed the floor myself. It's kind of embarrassing to say that, but that's because you're such a good vacuumer.
Well,
So
I try take care of that. I try.
you'd be a great house husband, honestly. I mean, you cook great, you clean nicely, and you're such a joy to come home to. And I'm a workaholic, so I think it
You
would
are. You
it
are.
would be it would work out for us,
But I
actually.
look forward to that. I look forward to just more time with you and living back under the same roof again, and then just kind of going from there. And
Yeah, and you've been in Humboldt for most of your life, all of your life,
all my life, yeah.
and you'll be going, to a new area. What are you looking forward to about that?
I think just a change, change is a little scary. I don't know anybody over here besides my
We're
wife
in
and
Redding,
handful of
California right now.
people, handful of people that I worked with in Eureka for the city of Eureka that now work for the city of Reading and the police department. So, with the exception of that, like I said, I'm kind of starting over too. But I, feel like it's a good time, and
I got people coming out of the woodwork trying to recruit you. Like it's you
it's very
are,
nice that
a lot of
people.
people know you, and they know your work ethic. So I think that whatever's meant to be will be,
Yeah, I think
and we'll be
so.
grateful to be together, and grateful for the community has been so welcoming
They
here
have
in
been
Redding,
great,
California. So,
very good.
but I miss Humboldt too, and I know you're going to miss it too. I know it's
Yeah,
bittersweet for you.
it is a little bittersweet, but I think that like I said in the end, change is good in a lot of ways, and I have an opportunity for this next part of my life to be someplace else, and so I think that's a
New
new
adventures.
adventures. Yeah, I think that's a great thing, and so and I. And the kids are finally at an age where that's a possibility for me, where it wouldn't have been, a few years ago, and so
Yeah.
I think that's an added plus, a little bit less worry about them because I kind of know where they are and what they're doing now and where they're going with their own lives, and so that's certainly an added plus.
God always has a better plan than we ever had. Isn't that? It's so true.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like that's definitely the case.
When we were on your birthday vacation in the hotel, there was a paid program on, and I was watching and I got sucked in. And this is how I do. I'm just like spontaneous. So I get sucked into the paid program. I'm like, ooh, he's preaching to me. I like what he's saying. And Joel Osteen, I think
Yeah,
is his name. Is it Osteen? Did I
I think
pronounce it properly? Anyway, preacher guy. He moved me emotionally. I was like, oh, this is right. I looked him up, found some quotes, found some books, bought my first book on Audible, and I'm about to start it, but it's called Your Grader is Coming. Anyway, I am excited to read the book. All right, so this podcast, we're running out of time, so we got to wrap it up here. But this podcast is called Choose Happy, and I named it that because I feel like life is crazy. Things get thrown our way. We all have tough times, difficulties, challenges, and it is up to us to decide how we respond to that. So obviously we have no choice in what happens to us in our lives, but we have a choice on how we respond to it. And we get to, I don't even like saying have to, we get to actively choose happy, positivity, our outlook in life, a positive outlook in life, despite what life throws our way. And so at the end of every podcast, I like to ask my guest, in this case, my husband, what are some things that make you happy?
You make me happy.
That's the canned answer. That's the obvious answer. No, but
You make
really,
me happy. I don't know.
you have 3 minutes to.
3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Just the stability of our relationship makes me happy. I think that you make me happy. The stability of our relationship, our healthy family, makes me happy. Just I try to feel like that. I'm happy about the career and the life that I lived. I think that I've done my time that way, and hopefully did some good in that. So that makes me happy to know that hopefully I'll leave a little bit of legacy of that I made some positive impact.
You're a kind human being. You were voted best cop in Humboldt.
That's because I'm married to you. I'm pretty
No,
sure
no.
I would not have beaten Billy Hansel, Sheriff Billy
I
Hansel, if you were not my wife.
love Sheriff Hansel. I
Sheriff
know.
Hansel's a great man.
He's incredible.
Just having, like I said, having time, being healthy, hopefully being able to walk, to leave my profession with my health, that makes me happy. I mean,
Yeah, when so many people don't get that opportunity. We're definitely grateful for that. I'm grateful and excited for all the adventures that are yet to come. And we're going to have some adventures, Mr. Wilson. Oh, heck yes, we are. I'm so excited. We're going to have we're going to have so much fun. Your life. Did you ever think your life would be this wild and crazy?
No, I didn't. I'm so glad it didn't turn out the way I was thinking it was going to turn out.
You never know what to
A few years ago, I would have thought that was the end of it. Like, my life was going to be that way for the rest of my life, and that was it. And I was going to be miserable and unhappy. And boy, some things changed in my favor. And
surprise! I have a cake for you. Candles. Okay, ready? We're gonna sing. I'm gonna sing to you. Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. Wilson. Happy birthday to you.
Thanks.
Blow out your candle. Oh, happy birthday. Give me a kiss. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here for this edition of the Choose Happy podcast. I hope you get out there and make it a great day. Why, Wilson? Why can you make it a great day?
Because you have a choice.
Because you have a choice. Get out there and choose happy. Bye.
Thank you.